we try to look at some introductory concepts that we should be aware of in physiology, specifically just under blood. Then from there we'll carry on with other major components that we need to look at or to focus on. So today we are just going to look at the introductory part of blood physiology. So this session we are going to cover the following. So we are going to do, first of all, we'll do the components of blood. The components of blood, like the composition of blood. Then we are also going to do the properties of blood. Then we are also going to look at the functions of blood. Then from there we will now enter into the other portion which we are not going to talk about today, but today we just want you to be exposed to these three points that we have written down. So basically blood is classified to be a connective tissue, as we all know, and blood is very, very important because it helps to support the body functions, the distribution of nutrients, the transportation of important molecules in the body like hormones, the transportation of waste material so that they can be excreted by the body. It is also involved in the transportation of oxygen so that it can support the metabolism of the body and also the formation of energy. So we know that every human being is made up of multiple body parts, and as we all know, we have got muscles and organs and so on and so forth. So in the functioning of all these things, all these organs in the body, blood actually plays a role. So you are going to find that blood will be playing the roles of transportation, the roles of protection, because you know that in blood you are also going to find immune cells that helps to protect. So it is going to be playing a role in transportation, protection, and also regulation. So that it can just keep our life, in perfect harmony as we are trying to do several activities in our lifetimes. So let's dig deep into the same blood physiology. So blood basically is a complex fluid that is consists of plasma. So blood actually has got components. So this all blood, first of all, we need to understand that blood constitutes about 8% of the total body weight. So if someone is about 50 kg in terms of weight, or 70 kg, you're going to find that 8% of their weight, that is going to be the blood. So meaning blood constitutes about 8% to the total body weight of someone, of a particular individual. And this blood is going to be composed of, we are going to have plasma. So it is going to be composed of plasma. Then it is also going to be having what we call formed elements. It is going to be having what we call formed elements. So we're going to find that plasma will be constituting about 55% of the all total blood volume, and formed elements will be constituting about 45% of the all total blood volume. And these formed elements, that's where we are going to be find cells like the red blood cells and also other things that we are going to look at. So plasma will be consisting about 55%, and formed element, or specifically the red blood cells, you are going to find that they'll be constituting about 45%. So the formed elements of blood, we know that it's red blood cells, white blood cells, as well as platelets. And for blood plasma, it is going to be constituting of proteins. So it is going to be having proteins. Plasma will be having proteins. It is also going to be having water, and it is also going to be having other molecules that are going to be there, that can be electrolytes, can be enzymes and so forth. So plasma basically it presents itself in a pale white. it is going to be more like in a pale white color. That's how it is going to be appearing like. So you're going to find that if plasma tends to present itself in a color which might be, maybe let's say pink, this should be an indication to say there's been some sort of hemolysis that is taking place, causing the presence of the hemoglobin into the blood plasma, causing it to appear in a pink-like manner. Then in a condition where it is appearing brown greenish like or brown yellowish like, you're going to find that that can be due to the presence of a molecule that is known as bilirubin. This bilirubin, basically, it is a product that comes out due to the hemolysis of the red blood cells. So you're going to find that when this red blood cell gets to be undergoes hemolysis, it ruptures, the hemoglobin is going to be broken down into heme and the globin part. So you're going to find that the globin part can be converted to amino acids that can be useful later on, and then the heme is going to be converted into what we call biliverdin. This biliverdin, then it is going to be converted into what we call unconjugated bilirubin. So this unconjugated bilirubin can be transported to the liver, where it is going to be further metabolized, then it is going to be excreted. But in a manner where there is increase in the levels of this bilirubin, you're going to find that the blood plasma is going to be presenting itself in a brown, green, or yellowish like color. That should just be a presentation to say, or rather that should just be an indication to say there is some sort of hemolysis that has occurred. Then in a condition where the blood plasma tends to present itself in a cloud like color, you're going to find that it is due to the accumulation of certain proteins, or due to the condition that is known as a cryoglobulinemias. Condition known as cryoglobulinemia. Yeah. So apart from that, we now get to go onto the components of blood. So as we talked about, we said that blood as usual, it consists about 8% of the whole total body weight, and this blood just on this part, you are going to find that the range in terms of the how much it constitutes to the body weight can be within the range of 8 to 7%. Then we said that this blood is actually divided into two components. We are going to have plasma. Which we say that plasma consists about 55% of the whole blood volume. Then we're also going to have what we call the formed elements. And in these formed elements, the one that is going to be having those platelets, white blood cells, red blood cells, and so on and so forth. Then the formed elements constitutes about 45% of the whole total blood volume. So what we need to know is that when you get to have a sample, then that sample of blood, let's say you get a sample of blood, then you put it in a tube like this. Then this sample of blood here, you take it into a machine that is known as a centrifuge machine. That machine, how it works is that it is going to be separating the mixed components of that particular solution depending on the density. So you're going to find that those molecules that are denser, they are going to settle down at the bottom here, and those that are lighter, then you follow until you reach to those molecules that are the lightest in that particular solution. So if you take blood into that machine that is known as a centrifuge machine, you're going to find that this blood is going to be separated, and as it is being separated into three components, you're going to find that the blood plasma will be on top, then the red blood cells will settle at the bottom like this. Then just in between the red blood cells that are settled at the bottom here, the red blood cells, and the blood plasma, there's going to be a space, or the liquid that is in between here, which is referred to as the Buffy coat. This Buffy coat, it is the one that is going to be consisting of the white blood cells as well as the platelets. So now, getting back now to the composition of the blood, we said that plasma consists about 55% of the whole blood volume. So we are going to find that in plasma we have water. We are going to have water, and this water, out of the 55% of plasma that is found in the blood, water takes about 91.5% of the volume of plasma is going to be water. And then you're going to find that about 7% of the volume of plasma, it is going to be plasma proteins. Then about 1.5% of plasma volume, it is going to be other solids. So these other solids can be like what we talked about, they can be electrolytes and other things. So you're going to find that these plasma proteins actually are very, very important because they help in the transportation of molecules such as hormones, such as drugs, and so on and so forth. So you're going to find that they play a role in the transportation processes that the blood carries. So you're going to find that these proteins, we have the most abundant protein, the first one, which is known as albumin. And this albumin, you're going to find that 54% of the plasma proteins, it is going to be albumin. Then followed by another type of protein that is known as the globulins. So these globulins, they are going to be consisting of about 38% of the proteins that are found in blood plasma. Then we are going to have other proteins such as the fibrinogen. So these will be constituting about 7% of the proteins that are found in blood plasma. Then the other one will be the other proteins such as enzymes and so on and so forth that are going to be just found there in the blood. They are the ones that are going to be constituting of the remaining 1%. So we're going to find that the most abundant protein that is going to be in blood plasma, it is albumin, constituting about 54% of all the proteins that are found in plasma. Then from there, under the formed elements, you're going to find that we'll be having platelets, and these platelets, they'll be about 150,000 to 400,000. So you should take note of these counts because they'll be helping in time as we go further on and as we'll be looking at certain questions that are specifically based on this. Then platelets, they will be like 150 to 400,000 platelets are the ones that are going to be found in blood. Then you're also going to have about 5,000 to 10,000. These are going to be white blood cells. Then the other part is going to be the red blood cells. So you're going to find that you have about 4.8 million to 5.4 million red blood cells that are just going to be circulating into your blood. So you're going to find that under the white blood cells are also separated, and there are about 4 types of white blood cells that we have. So white blood cells, we have the first white blood cells, and these first white blood cells are the most abundant white blood cells that are into the circulatory system. And these white blood cells are known as the neutrophils. And they constitute about 60 to 70% of the white blood cells. So 60 to 70% of white blood cells that are found in the body are neutrophils. Then you are going to have what we call the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes, they are about 20 to 25%. So we're going to find that 20 to 25% of the white blood cells that are found in the blood are lymphocytes. Then followed by white blood cells that are known as the eosinophils. These they consist of about 2 to 4%. Then the least are known as the basophils. So basophils, they will be consisting about 0.5 to 1% of the white blood cells that are going to be found into the body. So these white blood cells, basically, we are going to know more about them as we'll be getting into immunity. When you start talking about adaptive immunity as well as innate immunity, that's when we are going to go deep down into digging now the functions and the characteristics of these white blood cells. But we just have to know that these white blood cells are the one that plays a role in protecting our bodies against pathogens or against microbes that can induce any pathological reaction into the body. So upon getting to have this overview onto the composition of blood, would also like to look at what are the properties of blood. What are some of the properties of blood that enables the blood to carry out some of the functions that we mentioned, like the transportation functions, and also how does it help to maintain the pH and so on and so forth. So let's try to look at these properties of blood. So we have the first property that we are going to look at, but first, before we look at the properties, let's first mention the properties of blood. So we have got the first property, and this first property is the pH. Then we are going to have the second one, which is going to be temperature. Then we're also going to look at the third property, which is viscosity. Then we're also going to look at the fourth, which is about color of blood. Then we're also going to look at the last one, the fifth one, which is the amount. Okay, so now let's start with the pH. So before we can talk about the pH of the blood, we have to know that pH basically reflects the concentration of hydrogen ion. So it is just going to be reflecting the concentration of this hydrogen ion. So how much of the hydrogen ion are in this particular solution? So when you tend to know, and you tend to get a correct measure of them, that is going to be the pH, or it is just the measure of how acidic or alkalinity a solution is. And we know that the acidity of a solution, it is determined by the concentration of the hydrogen ion, and also same applies to the alkalinity of the solution. So you are going to find that pH will be just reflecting the concentration of this hydrogen ion. So when you talk about the pH of the blood, basically we are just trying to talk about what is the concentration of these hydrogen ions that are found into the blood. So the pH of the blood, basically it is slightly alkaline, but it ranges from 7.35 to somewhere 7.45. This is the pH of the blood. And we are going to find that the venous blood is going to be having a lower part, or rather it is going to be having a lower pH compared to the arterial blood. This is because we know that the venous blood, it is deoxygenated blood, the blood that is being taken to the heart so that it can be pumped to the lungs, and it can be oxygenated and again pumped into the circulatory system. So we're going to find that venous blood is going to be rich in carbon dioxide, and we have known to say blood, specifically in plasma, there is a concentration, or there is a certain amount of water that is found there. So we're going to find that in the venous blood, this carbon dioxide has got the ability to react with water to form what we call carbonic acid. This carbonic acid, basically it is not a stable acid, so it has got some superpowers of dissociating to form hydrogen ion plus what we call bicarbonate. So this is hydrogen plus bicarbonate, like this. So this carbonic acid can dissociate to form hydrogen ions and the carbonic or bicarbonate, and this bicarbonate will be acting as the buffer system of the body, to be there trying to maintain the pH of the body. So we are going to find of the blood. So we are going to find that these hydrogen ions are going to be more. So the concentration of hydrogen ion is going to be higher in the venous blood compared to the concentration of hydrogen ion in the arterial blood. This is because the venous blood has got a higher concentration of carbon dioxide that can react with water to form this acid, which can dissociate to give out the hydrogen ion. That's why we're going to find that the pH is going to be slightly lower, indicating that you are having a higher concentration of hydrogen ion. So that's one part. And we know that the maintenance of this pH of the blood, it also helps to maintain the functional capacity of the proteins that are found in blood, because we know that when the proteins are exposed to an acidic environment where you are having high concentration of hydrogen ion, they can be denatured, and as a result you find that those proteins that helps in the transportation of drugs and other molecules like hormones can be denatured, and it can impair the transportation and so on and so forth. Also enzymes can be affected. So the body's pH is within this range. Then the other property that we can talk about is temperature. So basically the temperature of the blood is slightly higher than what we call the core body temperature. So this that we call the core body temperature, it is the temperature of the deep tissues or the deep organs of the body That is what we call the core body temperature. So you're going to find that deep tissues or deep organs of the body, like let's say the lungs, the heart, the brain, the liver, intestines, and so on and so forth, they have got a specific type of temperature that they tend to operate under, and that temperature is approximately about 37 degrees Celsius. But the blood, you are going to find that the blood will be having a temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. This is what we call the core body temperature. But the blood will be having a temperature of about 38 degrees Celsius. So you are going to find that it is going to be about 1 degree Celsius higher than the core body temperature. So the temperature of the body also is very, very important, because we know that protein are sensitive, temperature sensitive molecules also. So you're going to find that increasing the temperature of the protein can denature them, and if the proteins are denatured, that can affect the functions of the body in one way or the other, as we are going to be going deep in. Then the other property that I would like us to look at is what we call viscosity. Viscosity. Have you ever heard of that saying? That saying where people say that blood is thicker than water? Basically, that is true. And the reason why is because blood has got a higher concentration of formed elements. We talked about those formed elements like the white blood cell, red blood cells, platelets, and so on and so forth, those plasma proteins. You're going to find that due to the presence of that, the blood has got a certain amount of viscosity, or rather, let me say, it has got a certain amount of thickness. And that thickness basically gets to contribute to factors like blood pressure and so on and so forth. So viscosity, basically, when you say viscosity, we are just talking about the thickness of a fluid, or the resistance of that fluid in terms of its flowing. For example, if you put two spoons of sugar in a cup that is just having, maybe let's say, a few rather low amount of water, maybe let's say you get a spoon, you take water with a spoon, you put it in a cup, and again you get a spoon, you take 2 spoons of sugar, you put it in that water. You're going to find that the solution that you're going to make there, it is going to be very, very thick. Why? It is because there is high concentration of sugar molecules in that particular volume of water. So as a result, when you pour it down, it is not going to move fast as water can move fast when there is no amount of sugar in it. So that resistance in flow due to the thickness, that is what we call the viscosity. So you're going to find that blood is about 3 to 4 times thicker than water. And the saying came to say, no, blood is thicker than water. Okay, then the other component that we are going to look at, or rather property that we are going to look at, is the color of blood. Also blood, you can try to differentiate depending on how it tends to appear, on how it tends to present itself in terms of the color. So you're going to find that the color of blood is going to be determined by the amount of oxygen that is going to be bound in the blood, in the hemoglobin of that particular blood sample. So let's say if you get 2 samples, then this is going to be oxygenated blood, and this one is going to be deoxygenated blood. You're going to find that the color that this oxygenated blood is going to present itself with is going to be a little bit different with this blood that is going to be here. Why? This is because the blood has got what we call the hemoglobin, which we know that this is a pigment that is found in the red blood cell that tends to give them the same color. So we're going to find that oxygenated blood, due to the fact that it is going to be bound to due to the fact that oxygen in that oxygenated blood is going to be bound to hemoglobin, you find that the blood that is oxygenated will be it will be presenting itself in a bright red color, while the venous blood, which is deoxygenated, while having low concentration of blood, will somehow present itself in a darker red color. And this is actually true. For example, when you find the blood that might come out of an animal that is dead and an animal that is alive, you're going to find that an animal that is dead, the blood that might come out of it is going to be somehow dark red, and that one which is just alive, it is going to be somehow brightly. This is because of the concentration of oxygen in the two blood that you are looking at. So you're going to find that the color of blood tends to differ depending on the concentration of oxygen in that particular blood sample. So you're going to find that the oxygenated blood will be presenting itself in a bright red color, while the venous blood in a darker red color. This is due to high oxygen in the arterial blood than the venous blood, as we have talked about it. Then the other part that you'd like to look at it is the amount of blood. So do you know that the amount of blood tends to differ in terms of the amount of blood or the volume of blood that is in female and male? So you're going to find that on average, or rather the range of blood volume that is in the human body ranges from 5 liters to about 6 liters. That is the range in an average adult male. So in male it is going to be within this range. Then in female it is going to be somewhere 4 to 5 liters. That is in an average adult female. Yeah. So this is because male, you're going to find that male, they have got a greater muscle mass than female. Yeah, they have got a greater muscle mass than female, and due to that you're going to find that muscles will need enough oxygen and blood for nutrients so that it can meet their metabolic demand. So you're going to find that as male, they are carrying out certain activities, even just when they are walking, maybe let's say for a significant distance, you're going to find that their muscles will require, or rather will request for more oxygenated blood as well as nutrients so that it can meet their metabolic demands. Metabolic demands, just these demands in which the body needs more energy formation, it needs more nutrients so that it can form energy and so on and so forth. So you're going to find that due to the fact that male, they have a greater muscle mass, they will be having a greater volume of blood compared to female, and female, they have got high amount of fat tissue in them compared to male. So you're going to find that fat tissue will be reducing the amount of blood that female is having compared to male. And they are also going to female, they also have lesser muscle mass compared to male. So you're going to find that the blood volume in these two, it is going to differ based on these two factors that we have looked at. Then the other part that we would like to look at after trying to assess these properties, of which we said that the first property that we looked at was the pH, and we said that the pH of the blood ranges from this range, which is 7.35 to 7.45, and we said that the venous blood has got a lower pH compared to the arterial blood due to the presence of oxygen that tends to create a higher concentration of hydrogen ions in the blood. And we said that also the temperature, the core body temperature, basically we know that it is 37 degrees Celsius, and we know that blood temperature of the blood is about 38 degrees Celsius, so it is slightly higher than the core body temperature just by 1 degree. And we also looked at the viscosity, we also looked at the color and the volume. So now let's look at the last part, which is the functions of blood. So blood has got 3 major functions. So blood has got 3 major functions that we are going to focus on for today. So functions of blood, which we are trying to say the 3 major ones, we are going to have, it is going to be involved in the transportation functions. It is also going to be involved in the regulation function, and it is also going to be involved in the protection function. So these are some of the major functions that the blood is involved in: transportation, regulation, as well as protection. So under transportation, we are going to find that the blood carries a lot of functions under transportation, of which the first one we can look at respiratory. Under respiration, right? So we're going to find that blood has got a function of transporting oxygen and carbon dioxide, these gases. So we're going to find that oxygen will be transported. So let's say if this is the body tissue, having this body tissue, which you can say it's a muscle, you're going to find that the And these are the lungs. Let's just get to have a view of just a quick sketch. And these are the lungs, and this is the body tissue. So this body tissue can be maybe, let's say, a muscle. So you're going to find that oxygen is going to be transported from the lungs. So oxygen will be transported from the lungs, getting it into the body tissue, while carbon dioxide is going to be taken from the body tissue back to the lungs. So this process of transportation here, it is being carried out by blood. So this carbon dioxide is being taken from the body tissue back to the lungs so that it can be exhaled. And this oxygen is being taken from the lungs to the body tissue so that it can be used for metabolic functions, like in the production of energy. We know that the formation of energy, which is specifically ATP, it involves oxygen when you go deep down into the electron transport chain. So we're going to find that these all mechanisms here tends to maintain what we call cellular respiration as well as the production of energy. And you are going to find that the significant amount of oxygen in the blood, it is carried as bicarbonate, just like the way we looked at. We said that oxygen, carbon dioxide, when it is now into the blood, it has got the ability to react with water to form carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid can dissociate and form hydrogen plus bicarbonate. So you are going to find that about 70% of carbon dioxide is going to be transported as bicarbonate. Then you are going to find that about 25% of carbon dioxide is going to be transported as carba. It is going to be transported as carbaminohemoglobin. So meaning that this is now 25% of the carbon dioxide is the carbon dioxide that is going to be able to be bound to the hemoglobin of the red blood cell. Then 5% is going to be transported just like directly, just as, carbon dioxide. So this 25% in which carbon dioxide is binding to hemoglobin, you know that when carbon dioxide binds to the hemoglobin, it is going to form the same complex that is known as carbaminohemoglobin. So carb means is coming from the carbon dioxide, then hemoglobin, we know where it is coming from. So you are going to find that 70% is transported as bicarbonates, and then 25% as carbaminohemoglobin, which is bound to the hemoglobin, then 5% just going to be transported directly. So under the transportation here, we have got respiration, in which blood is going to be involved in the transportation of respiratory gases like carbon dioxide and oxygen, in which oxygen will be moved from the lungs, getting into the body tissue. Then from the body tissue, carbon dioxide is being taken back to the lungs for exhalation. So we know that in the body tissue there are metabolic functions that takes place there, in which carbon dioxide is one of the byproducts. So we're going to find that it is going to be taken out to prevent toxicity, because we know that carbon dioxide, when it stays there without being excreted out, so we know that carbon dioxide, when it stays into the body without being excreted, it can increase the levels of hydrogen ion, leading to a condition that is known as acidosis. So that acidosis can be either respiratory or metabolic, depending on what is the causative thing, or rather depending on what is being the cause. Then the other part under transportation that we can look at is basically the transportation of nutrients. So we know that nutrients. So you know that when you eat, the food gets into your GIT system and digestion takes place. Obviously, from that fish that you eat, we need to absorb amino acids from it. From those glucose from that enzyme that you take, we have to get some glucose, glucose out of it to get it into the blood system. Those vegetables, fruits, we have to get vitamins, fats, and so on and so forth. So those nutrients actually are needed by the body tissue specifically, so that it can support the growth and the formation of energy. So you're going to find that when you eat, nutrients are going to be absorbed, and the absorption of nutrients, it means that nutrients are being now taken from the GIT system, in which it is being taken from your intestines, where the absorption takes place from, then getting into the blood. And as it gets now into the blood, it is now going to be transported to the site where it is going to be needed for tissue metabolism. So you're going to find that in blood, we talked about those proteins. Those proteins, they play a role in the whole thing of transportation. And we know that we have proteins like albumin, globulin, fibrinogen that are found in blood. Then also it helps in the transportation of hormones, or let me say hormonal transportation. So we know that when hormones are released or are secreted from endocrine glands, you're going to find that those hormones, they are transported from that gland where it has been formed from to the body tissue via blood. So blood is going to be acting as a transporter there. So for example, if this is the pancreas that we are looking at, the pancreas has got specifically what we call the beta cells. These beta cells are involved in the release of what we call insulin. So this insulin is a hormone that helps in the internalization of glucose. So in a condition where you eat a meal and there's been absorption of glucose here into the blood system, so that increase in the glucose levels in the blood is going to trigger the release of this insulin hormone from the beta cells of the pancreas. When this insulin is released, it goes and binds onto the cells on the body tissues. That is now going to activate channels that will allow the internalization of glucose. So now the transportation of insulin there, it is via blood. So in blood, as we talked about, you have these plasma proteins like the albumin. So you're going to find that insulin will be binding there to albumin, and albumin will be acting as the motorcycle guy carrying this insulin to the site where insulin needs to act on, so that it can give permission for the internalization of glucose. So it is very, very important. So blood plays a role in the transportation of hormones. Then we can also look at the transportation of metabolic waste. So we know that metabolic waste such as that can be uric acid, we can also have urea, we can also have creatinine, so on and so forth, just going there. So those metabolic products should be taken out. So now for them to be taken out from the body tissues, they need blood for them to be swiped away from there. So we saw how carbon dioxide was being taken out from the body tissue to the lungs so that it can be taken out. That's how even these metabolic waste products can be transported. They are going to be taken to the kidney so that they can be excreted. Some they go to the lungs like carbon dioxide excreted, and so on and so forth. So the transportation of these metabolic waste, it is through blood, so that it can prevent the accumulation of these metabolic waste that can lead to toxicity. And when you find that the level of toxins in the body increases, it is going to change the internal environment. So meaning that the homeostasis of the body might be disrupted, causing to other dysfunctioning that may occur into the body. Then apart from that, the body has got to also regulatory functions. These regulatory functions, we looked at one of them, which we were talking about, the pH. So upon the pH just being a property, it also plays the blood also plays a role in the regulation of pH. We looked at how pH can be regulated, looking at the concentration of hydrogen ion. We said that the blood has got a buffer that is known as bicarbonate. This bicarbonate, it is formed due to the reaction of carbon dioxide. To find that the presence of this bicarbonate, it helps in a condition where there is accumulation of hydrogen ion. This bicarbonate can start reacting with the same hydrogen ion to form what we call water and carbon dioxide, which the carbon dioxide can be excreted via the lungs. The water, if it is in excess, it can be taken out through sweating or through urine via the kidney. So we're going to find that the body also has got regulatory functions via regulating the pH by looking at the concentration of hydrogen ion, in which the buffer, which is the bicarbonate, plays a role. Then also it helps in the maintenance under regulatory. We also have the maintenance of the temperature. So we know that the blood helps in the distribution of temperature that is being, or rather distribution of heat that is being generated by the active tissues in the body. So we know that the blood basically has got these proteins that we looked at, and these proteins, they are basically sensitive, temperature sensitive molecules. So we're going to find that exaggerated increase in the blood temperature can cause denaturation of this protein that can further cause other problems. So we're going to find that the blood plays a role in the distribution of this heat from the active body tissue, so that to somewhere the skin, so that it can bring about vasodilation of those blood vessels and loss of heat. As we are going to be looking at that mechanism, so on, you'll be able to understand it further. But We have to know that it helps in the distribution of heat that is being generated by the body tissue to maintain the body temperature required for the normal functioning of the body cells. Then apart from that, it also tends to regulate and maintain the water content. It tends to regulate and maintain the water content. So regulate water content. So you're going to find that the blood has got a specific amount of water that is found in there, and we looked at in plasma we have about 91.5%. It is going to be what? Water. So this is the amount of water that is required. So when you get to find what is the volume of water, or 91.5%, what is going to be this volume in the blood plasma, we're going to find that is the required amount of water that is needed in order to maintain the functions of the cells in the blood, which you can say the red blood cells and also other blood cells that we looked at. So we know that in a condition where someone is dehydrating, they are losing water, you're going to find that if this is your blood and these are your blood, let me write here, if this is blood, we are having blood here, and this blood is having this fluid which is water, and these are going to be formed elements. So you're going to find a decrease in the blood volume due to due to dehydration. You are losing water. You're going to find that to be increasing the level of these formed elements, and these formed elements, amongst them we have got proteins. So proteins, they have got the ability to form a force that is known as the oncotic pressure. So that pressure, oncotic pressure, it is a pressure that tends to help to retain the volume of the fluid, which is water. And also increasing the water levels can go to an increase into what we call the hydrostatic pressure. This hydrostatic pressure, it is the pressure that tends to be pushing fluids out. So you're going to find that when you are losing water, when you're dehydrating, you are basically decreasing the hydrostatic pressure and increasing the oncotic pressure, because the concentration of protein is going to be what? Increasing. So as a result, the oncotic pressure, we know that proteins are negatively charged. So through what we call the Donin effect, you're going to find that that oncotic pressure will start now attracting the water from the body tissues, and as that, it is going to start maintaining the blood volume. And when that happens, your body basically has done its regulatory role, trying to maintain the body body water, so that the cells doesn't undergo lysis, or they doesn't undergo in that flaccid like state. Then apart from that, we can look at the last part, which is the protection part. How does the blood plays a role in protection? So we know that the blood has got the ability to perform what we call hemostasis, in which they'll be preventing excessive bleeding, and you know that this whole process of bleeding can be stopped via the action of platelets. So the platelets, they have got the ability to form what we call the platelet plug, that will reduce on the bleeding, so that we can prevent the loss of blood. Then also white blood cells, as we talked about, these white blood cells, they play a role in protection, because they have got the ability to kill and recognize those pathogens and kill them, so that we can prevent further progression of an infection or the initiation of an infection. So basically, these are just these are the major functions, and are being broken down like that, so that you can have a wider view or a wide understanding amongst these functions. Yeah, otherwise we have done the components that we wanted to focus on for today. Thank you very much for your time, and have a blessed evening.